US Deep Dive. I'm Najma Minhas. Today we're talking about a very important meeting between two big world leaders, Donald Trump and Narendra Modi. Now, unlike the state reception with the fanfare that Prime Minister Modi got in 2017, this meeting is expected to be very different and very tough. And like all the leaders that came before him so far, Prime Minister Modi will be presented with an America First list of things to do. Trump is currently on a roll, and even for himself, he's not interested in diplomatic niceties. Just wants to hand out a task sheet that the administration wants done ASAP. So Netanyahu, who thought he was going to get Gaza, heard during a press conference that actually the Americans were getting Gaza for a real estate development project. Japanese Prime Minister has been told to buy American oil and not Saudi Arabian oil. And for Prime Minister Modi, President Trump has a similar task list. So what are the key things that Trump is going to bring up and what Modi has to deliver to stay in his good books? This time round, selling the story of being the bulwark against China in Asia is probably not going to work as well. He's going to want a lot more. There are four main areas and a rising fifth issue that Trump has in mind. Illegal immigration, H-1B visas, of course, Trump's favorite topic these days, tariffs. They will be on the agenda. Russia and Iran will definitely be coming up in these conversations. And the fentanyl chemical problem that the United States is having. Is India playing a role in the opioid crisis as well? Now, India does have a few cards it can play itself. So let's break down each of these so that you can understand and what's happening and why this meeting is important. Please subscribe to the channel and press that bell for getting notified each time a video comes out. First, illegal immigration. Trump's MAGA supporter base is hopping mad about losing jobs and what they see as their lower quality of life due to jobs and goods being outsourced to cheaper labor elsewhere. At the same time, they believe illegal immigration is taking their jobs domestically as well, as their tax resources are also getting used as benefits and other such perks of living within the United States for these illegal immigrants. So we are constantly hearing stories about illegal immigrants being kept in luxury hotels in New York, for example. Illegal immigration is on the rise in the United States. According to the Office of Homeland Security, there were approximately 11 million unauthorized immigrants living in the United States on January the 1st, 2022. This was the first increase since following a period of decline for quite a long period between 2007 and 2019. Illegal immigrants account for almost 1/4 of all US foreign-born population. Now, in the US, this matters a lot because unlike most countries of the world, including India, it has a huge foreign-born immigrant population. In 2022, legal immigrants were around 37 million people, which is around 10% of its population. Add into this another 11 million, then you're looking at close to 50 million people. And I don't know a single country in the world where xenophobia does not jump when there is a sudden massive increase in foreigners, even in a country that prides itself as being a land of immigrants. In 2023, there were around 3.2 million encounters of illegal immigrants with border officials attempting to cross the US borders. Now, most of these occurred, 77% of them, at the southern border with Mexico. And now when we talk about illegal immigration to the United States, most people think about Mexicans or people from Latin America. But guess what? Indians are now the third largest group of unauthorized immigrants in the United States. Estimates suggest that there are currently around 725,000 illegal Indian immigrants living in the US. The third largest group after Mexicans and Salvadorans. In 2023, more than 14,000 Indians were arrested at the US-Canada border while they were trying to enter illegally. Most of them come from Punjab and Gujarat, which is Modi's own state, trying to escape poverty or political problems. Now, this in itself is a reflection of the massive income inequality that has happened in India in the past decade. But for Trump, showing that he's strong and he'll be deporting all those illegal immigrants is one of his key imperatives. When he was asked by a reporter about undocumented Indian immigrants in the United States, Trump said that Modi had agreed to do whatever is right. However, for Prime Minister Modi's government, deporting these illegal immigrants and the way they've been done so in such a humiliating fashion has become a political hotcake for Indians. Men and women have been sent back on long flights over 48 hours, often shackled both with their legs and their arms, and then not even being allowed to go to the toilet. And this has created a backlash for Modi. Prime Minister Modi has already committed to taking back around 18,000 illegal immigrants. And there's no question he's going to take them back and a lot more. The negotiation that Modi will have with Trump over this issue is going to be the manner in which they are to be treated and sent back. Trump will also be pressurizing Modi to ensure that fewer of them leave India in the first place to illegally immigrate. So are Indian workers taking American jobs? Indians have become the second largest immigrant community after the Mexicans in the United States, close to 3 million of them. And most of them are doing way better than the host community. They are also increasingly visible both in the C-suite, country startups, the technology companies, as well as politics. And now even the second lady of the country is in India. This has led to a massive backlash from Trump's mostly white MAGA supporters. Vivek Ramaswamy, the young Indian American who was the presidential candidate and then became the co-chairperson to lead DOGE, started a very genuine conversation in late December about why Americans are being left behind the world. And he attributed it to mostly woke culture, among other things.
We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. Okay, the things that used to fill our void for purpose as Americans, faith, patriotism, hard work, family, whatever it might be, those things have disappeared. And that leaves a moral vacuum in its wake. And when you have a black hole that runs that deep, that is when poison fills the void.
But in that post, he made a small reference as to why H-1Bs were taking the jobs. This not only got him cancelled from the DOGE position, but ironically has started a massive backlash against Indians and the H-1Bs, which is still being witnessed on X as well as other social media sites. The H-1B visa program basically started under the Immigration Act of 1990. And under this, U.S. employers can hire foreign professionals in specialized fields such as technology, engineering, and nursing, and so on. Indian nationals have become significant beneficiaries of this program in the past 25 years. I also came on the H-1B in 1998, I think it was. I worked for an economic consulting company at that time. Now, after this controversial post by Vivek 2024, a notable debate emerged on social media regarding the H-1B visa program. Elon Musk, who himself has held a H-1B visa and whose company Tesla employs workers under this program, defended the technology companies' need and the industry's need to attract foreign talent. However, the program is being seen by the average MAGA supporter as part of the reason why they don't have a job. It is seen as a tool being used by the major technology companies, and in particular Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple, to recruit people at lower incomes than they would need to pay equivalent American workers. Trump has always been tough on this issue, and in his first administration, he made it harder to get a H-1B visa by increasing the restrictions, and now he might want to do the same again. The majority of these visas go to India, something, in fact, that Modi worked very closely with Trump's first administration to ensure that this continued when a similar uproar happened then. More than 2.1 million Indian professionals have applied for H-1B visas in the past 11 years. And this is actually one of the major reasons why there has been this jump in the Indian population, the immigrant community here in the United States. Now, there are worries that the Trump administration is under pressure to be seen working on this foreign workers issue, and he will cut the number of permits for Indians in particular. This time round, Prime Minister Modi might be less successful at persuading Trump to not cut those numbers. Modi will argue, however, that Indian technology workers help the United States economy, and that many American companies need these specialized workers, especially in the STEM areas, where Americans are generally still weak performers given the way their school system operates. The Indian strategy with the United States will be to make some quick concessions on some relatively what they consider to be minor issues, making Trump feel big and good, that he's got some wins, and which will hopefully remove his pressure on the bigger issues. So now, coming to some of the real bigger issues between the two countries. So Trump's favorite word we know since he's come back has been tariffs, which is just another word for taxes on imported goods in the country. In the past, he has accused India of charging excessive tariffs. He's called the country a tariff king, and he's threatened to impose reciprocal levies. On the campaign trail last year, U.S. President Donald Trump referred to India as a big abuser of trade ties.
So when India, which is a very big abuser, he happens to be coming to meet me next week.
India is one of the most protectionist countries in the world when it comes to trade. So this means that India puts very high taxes on products that come from other countries, including from the United States. It's pursued or did pursue a policy of import substitution for decades, justifying these to protect local domestic manufacturers. For example, the average tariff that India still puts on imports is about 17.6%, which is much higher than what the United States or other big economies charge. On American motorcycles like the Harley-Davidson, India used to charge a crazy 100% of tax. That means if the bike cost $10,000, which we know a Harley-Davidson doesn't, but if it costed $10,000, it would cost $20,000 in India because of the tax. Now, Trump fought against this when he was the president in his first administration, and India at that time lowered it down to 50%, but he still thinks it's too high. The president has emphasized the importance of moving towards a fair bilateral trade relationship, even during his first phone call with Modi upon becoming president in January this year. The US in 2024 has a record bilateral trade deficit with India of $46 billion. And according to the World Bank, in 2022, India's average applied tariff across all products was approximately 11.5%, which is much higher than the Asia-Pacific average of around 3.4% and higher than that of China at 3.1% and Japan at only 1.6%. Now, despite these high tariffs between the United States and India, the trade has been growing. And in 2023, India exported goods which were worth around $83 billion to the United States, making the United States India's largest trading partner. Some of India's top exports, including things like diamonds, packaged medicines, and refined petroleum. On the other hand, the United States exported $46 billion worth of goods to India. Some of the biggest exports that the Americans sent to India include crude oil, aircraft, and machinery. However, United States businesses argue that their exports obviously could be way higher if India lowered its tariffs on products like agricultural goods, steel, and technology equipment. In 2019, under the first Trump administration, the US removed India from what is called the Generalized System of Preferences program, which had previously allowed certain Indian products, such as textiles, for example, to come to the US duty-free. Now, this move was a direct response to what the US perceived as being unfair trade practices by India. This time round, in anticipation of Trump's pressure, India has already announced a review of import tariffs on over 30 items, including luxury cars, solar cells, and chemicals. The Commerce Ministry cut tariffs on heavyweight bikes, which have engines above 1600 cc, from that 50% down to 30%, and on smaller models to around 40%, complying with Trump's long-standing demand to reduce levies on these higher-end motorcycles, like the Harley-Davidsons. Prime Minister Modi will be hoping that this will prevent the need for a trade war such as the United States almost precipitated with the Canadians and the Mexicans last week and has started with the Chinese. However, they are not likely to satisfy Trump. He's likely to ask India to lower trade barriers even further on a broader range of goods, and especially on agricultural products and industrial materials. Trump is expected to tell Modi that India needs to go lower on these high tariffs if it wants a better trade relations with the United States. India's oil trade with Russia has seen significant changes in recent years, and especially following the Russia-Ukrainian war that started in 2022. Historically, Russia was a very minor player in India's oil import portfolio. However, by May 2024, Russia had become India's largest crude oil supplier and accounted for almost 41% of India's 4.8 million barrels of per day of crude imports. This is a significant rise from the 0.2% it had in the Indian portfolio prior to the Russia-Ukrainian conflict. But not only that India has been really smart in getting cheap crude oil from Russia, it's also capitalized on this discounted crude oil by refining it and exporting the resulting products to other countries. And what's funny is that many of these countries that are buying these exported refined goods from India have actually got sanctions on buying Russian oil themselves in the first place. So in 2023, India's imports of crude oil from Russia were approximately $31 billion during this period. India's exports of refined oil products to the rest of the world were over $70 billion. One European think tank has revealed that over 1/3 of India's oil product is exported to the G7 coalition countries, which comes from Russian crude oil. Now, India's argument is that by importing discounted Russian crude oil, it saved itself approximately $25 billion, for example, in 2023, which it can use for its own people for their well-being. And no question about it, it got that economic advantage. But it's been a challenge in the past 2 years in balancing international diplomatic relations. And India has been under pressure from the United States to stop buying crude oil from Russia. And this will intensify under Donald Trump. Donald Trump will also be asking India to buy less military weapons from Russia and more from the United States, both to reduce its trade deficit with India and to ensure that India strategically moves away from Russia, where it has a historical military relationship. Modi is expected to announce a big order in additional weapon purchases from the United States while he's in Washington, mostly to appease Trump, who has pushed for these increased weapon sales. The Saudis did something very similar for Trump in his first administration to keep him happy. Now, on Iran. In light of President Donald Trump's reinstatement of the maximum pressure campaign against Iran, India will have to take some specific actions concerning its relationship with Iran. The key areas of focus will likely include to cease oil imports from Iran, because the US is aiming to reduce Iran's oil exports down to zero, to really limit Iran's revenue streams. India, which has previously imported significant amounts of Iranian oil, is going to be urged to halt these entirely. This will, of course, align with the United States' strategy to isolate Iran economically. The US recently also sanctioned an Indian company for doing oil trade business with Iran. What is likely to hurt India more strategically, though, is that the United States is reviewing the sanction waivers that it gave to India, which was related to the Iran's Chabahar port, a project in which India has substantial investments in. Last week, President Donald Trump signed an order, the National Security Presidential Memorandum, that could impose sanctions on India for its investment in Iran's Chabahar port. The memo says, the Secretary of State shall modify or rescind sanction waivers, particularly those that provide Iran any degree of economic or financial relief, including those related to Iran's Chabahar port. President Trump may ask India to reconsider its participation in this project to ensure compliance with the renewed sanctions regime. India had managed to get a waiver from the last administration on its involvement in this port. The US has recently imposed sanctions on networks facilitating Iranian oil shipments to different countries, including China and India. President Trump will tell Modi to align its trade practices with United States sanctions, avoiding engagements that could undermine the maximum pressure campaign. Now, what saves India is the dawning reality that even the United States is having to accept. the decline of its primacy. As the United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently acknowledged, the emergence of a multipolar world, the role that India plays in BRICS, and the need for it to play an active role under Quad, which was reignited initially in the first Trump administration. This gives India a stick to wield over the United States if it really is forced to use it.
It's not normal for the world to simply have a unipolar power. That was an anomaly. It was the product of the end of the Cold War. But eventually you were going to reach back to a point where you had a multipolar world, great powers in different parts of the planet. We face that now with China and to some extent, Russia. And then you have rogue states like Iran and North Korea you have to deal with.
Now, very briefly, a looming issue on the horizon is the fentanyl. It's a deadly drug which is causing a huge crisis in the United States. Around 100,000 Americans are dying from this drug overdose. And fentanyl is a major reason why I covered this in my last vlog on what the US wants from China, and it will be the same for India. I will put a link to it in the description as well. But India is the world's second largest supplier of pharmaceutical active products, around 22%. And some of these chemical ingredients are used to make fentanyl by the drug cartels in Mexico, which are also going to India as well as China, after China cracked down on many chemical producers in its country. The US government has already pressurized China to stop selling these chemicals, and now Trump might want to put the same pressure on India to do the same thing. Modi will likely argue that India is not responsible for what is happening to these chemicals after they're exported, but Trump will demand stricter controls on Indian pharmaceutical companies. So what will happen in this meeting? Trump is going to push hard on all 5 of these issues: the tariffs, the H-1B visas, the illegal immigration, Russia, Iran, and fentanyl chemicals. Modi will have to defend India's position and try to maintain a strong relationship with the United States. So tell me, what do you think? Should India be lowering these tariffs? Should the US be limiting the H-1B visas? Should Modi be doing more to stop illegal immigration and the fentanyl production? Do let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on geopolitical issues. See you next time.